Jason,
Hey, Mike.
how you doing, sir?
Pretty good.
I have got a good one for you this week on our latest episode of Brand is Everything. This is a robotics company and they're called Rerun. The agency that did the branding for it is called Studio Gruhl. It was started by a guy named Malte Gruhl, who used to actually be the head of design at Sid Lee in New York. So guy's got a lot of industry experience. He was also at RGA London before starting his own shop. Serious pedigree, obviously, as you can see just from this 30,000 foot view of the brand. It's really epic. Something pretty cool about the agency themselves is that they do a lot of counterculture client brand work, more like record label and stuff like that. You can even just see from this view of it that there is a lot of that kind of DNA and what they brought into this branding, and not something that you would generally think of when you think of a robotics company. I feel like people generally tend to go a little more cold and sterile. This has a little bit of that antithesis of it baked in. This campaign that they did for Rerun was based on a question of what do robots see? This brief was to reframe how the category obviously looks. We've all seen thermal camera images where cold spots are blue and hot spots are red. That's all based on color mapping. And this is a different form of color mapping where it's the same idea in robotics in that they use cameras to see, and that is in a depth map. So things that are far away are blue, things that are close to the camera are red, and then everything that's in between that range gets somewhere a band along the full color gamut of the rainbow. So some really cool, interesting background of how they used that idea and how it's infused its way into all of the branding. A lot of things that you and I and other visual people are drawn to. It doesn't have to be as complicated all the time. This looks really cool and I love it. The fact that they infuse that thinking and relevance to the branding, I think is really smart and beautiful. The way they apply it to these blooming, melting shapes in the typography, super rad. And one other thing that I was noticing is this idea around the bolt, and that infuses its way into the typography here too. It's really based and laddered around that E, that central E that looks like that bolt. And you can see in that GIF there in the middle left row how all the other letter forms follow that same geometry. Curious what you think about it.
This is a cool brand. You pull up the 30,000 foot view of it, and you're like, what is this? Is this a run club? Is this a streaming service? And then you talk about the agency is known for counterculture. First thing that pops in my head is, okay, Rerun is creating an RFP and deciding what they want this brand to look like and feel like, and what they don't want it to look like. And that goes back to what we keep talking about, our favorite concept, the sea of sameness. And they made a decision from the beginning. We don't want to look like a robotics company. We're not a B2B company. We want to put a flag in the ground and stand out among all the other competition. And we're going to do this from the moment where we pick the agency we're going to work with. And Gruhl is going to help us unlock something that no one's unlocked in this space. And they did their thing. They found this visual language and concept that does stand out. They took their expertise of counterculture and brought it into this space. Hats off to them of going against the grain and picking a partner that is going to blow it up and do it in a different way.
And I love that notion you're saying. It started with that decision of just
Yeah.
who's our partner. There's a theme in Brand is Everything of we like the category rejectors. This looks like it belongs in an art gallery. It's just so beautiful. And it's not what you expect at all from a robotics company. And exactly like you just said, that's their decision to be like, we're going to work with an agency that makes record label art and branding.
And that seems like a great idea. Right? That seems like, of course, we should work with a different kind of agency.
Right.
But think about all the conversations that happened within the walls of Rerun and the list that they had of branding agencies, and then deciding to do it differently.
Hmm.
I'm sure there was RFP process, pitch process. We sometimes focus on the decisions the client, the company made, and we celebrate the decisions and the work that the design partner made, but we don't talk about how they both play a really important role into shaping the work. And I have a feeling this is a perfect use case and example of them working together and finding something that felt right to evolve an industry that's in its infancy. Robotics, a year, 2 years from now, is going to blow up.
In that same line of thinking, when they brought this visual identity that's very much routed around the idea of that question, what do
Yeah.
robots see? Though on the surface, it has a really awesome vibe to it. Down here, their color palette is the entire rainbow, the full
Yeah.
spectrum. Pretty
Yeah.
cool that they have that agency to be able to use that. To your point, how could Rerun say, no, this isn't us? Because that's literally what their products see. That's how their products operate. A little background on the actual company themselves, the robotics company. It's specifically the data layer. So it's not hardware. It's about how the robotics teams visualize what their robots see. So they have an open source library for logging and visualizing that data. And then they have a back end that's more like storage and streaming layer of it. It's so interesting that they were able to take that concept of let's visualize the data of how our product visualizes the world. This gave me a really good reminder of what we looked at with Auge Design Agency and what they built for that hard candy company, Strangers, which we've featured on Brand is Everything before, is that yet again, we're going to start seeing a lot of this proprietary app that was built with all these little parameters so that you can have a visualizer and create custom branded artwork that has your branding's look and feel. And I have dabbled in these before, but it's really rad to see this infusion of what is capable nowadays in terms of asset creation and how you can get an insanely wide range of assets from building your own in-house proprietary app like this.
And this is Gruhl creating this. The landscape we're beginning to step into now is the creative team at Rerun has the ability to make this too. As we know that we're creating personal software and UI for our systems that have sliders and mechanisms for our brand guideline. It's really interesting that we've already talked about two of these software generators. This is going to be a trend. Creatives are now builders, as we know. But this is really cool. Code on the back end, plugged into an AI system, really can be a scalable mechanism to build out this brand at lightning speed.
I think about it from my perspective as an art director of 10 plus years. Had I been an in-house creative or an agency creative, that after this RFP, I worked at Rerun and I was handed a tool like this to be able
Yeah.
to create your own stuff is just such a game changer as opposed to getting a static PDF of brand guidelines that says, okay, your images look like this. Now you go make it. You now have an asset generator that just gives you so much more flexibility and it releases the reins of creativity to allow you to generate more and to have a little bit more leniency in that your ideas can really come to life because you have these things at your disposal.
Yeah. Going back to the color palette too, it's the rainbow, but how did they make the rainbow ownable? That's the impressive part. If I saw any of these textures out in the world after having this conversation, I'd be able to recognize it's Rerun. And as I look at this, think why it's so pleasing to the eye. It's grounded in grayscale. It's grounded in black and white. It's grounded in restraint of a color palette. And when they use that rainbow for the depth map, even when it takes over the entire shape and the entire screen, it still feels refined and ownable in the way they're using it. It feels very deliberate.
You can tell in their compositional layout grids when it takes up 90% of it, it's held and bounded by simplicity and restraint. That's what makes it feel like it has a super balanced composition in the way that it's presented. The rest of this palette is black, white, and gray. And they have this really nice and simple, grotesque typeface too that doesn't overcomplicate the rest of it because they knew that that visual of that rainbow element was going to be obviously the hero and the thing that gets your eye drawn to it. I don't know why this one gets me so much.
I really love that too.
It's probably because of the merch. Again,
Yeah.
another shirt we're gonna have to somehow source for ourselves. But
Uh-huh.
just the way that they have that
Grab
kind of
that.
like molten blooming effect is so rad.
It does. It feels like a DJ. It feels like a cool EDM festival in Berlin. That's the vibe I'm getting with the branding. And it's a robotics technology company. It's really cool. The name also creates a vibe too.
This is interesting because you and I sometimes talk about this idea of sub branding, right?
Mhm.
Especially as a new company. How do you create the opportunity for your brand to grow without necessarily that in your roadmap as a company yet? Companies start and they have vision, but they don't really know how they're going to evolve and shape over time. But the way that they built the re as that prefix in some of my quick research was saying that this is how they apply it to some of their sub branding. So for offsites, they'll call it re colon group. So like regroup. For a podcast, it could be relearn. So I thought that was really interesting. It's a clever move and it obviously plays on their name and the word mark, but it has the opportunity to let them spin up infinite product lines or however they choose to integrate that in their company culture.
It just goes back to the idea needs to be big enough that a brand is built around, that every detail and aspect and offsite, anything that you do internally, externally at a company, once you're inside that company, it needs to be able to be wrapped into that idea. Isn't that the ethos of brand is everything?
Mhm.
The brand literally needs to go into every facet of everything they do. You start with an idea of what robots see. That's what we make, and that's what the brand is about. And Rerun, they understand this idea of brand is everything.
Yeah, they do. Props to them for hiring an insanely awesome record label studio,
Mhm.
design studio, because they pulled this off. It's
Mm,
awesome.
The lesson to learn from this is if you want to stand out, don't hire what your competition is already. Don't hire a tech agency to create a tech brand if you want to do it differently. Hire a counterculture music design company in Germany.
Yeah, Berlin.
Yeah.
That's where you're getting the Berlin vibes from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a lot of the other agencies, I think we choose to focus on in these chats that we have. We're going to have another one out of Studio Gruhl because I was checking out a couple other projects that they've done, not to give away any future episodes, but there's some pretty epic stuff that these guys do. So shout out to them and shout out to Rerun for having the guts to try something different.
Yeah, I want that t-shirt.
I know. Add it to the list.
Add it to the list.
Rerun if you're listening.
Send
Or
us a
Studio
t-shirt.
Girl. We would love a t-shirt.
Yeah, send it to us, even though
Yep.
we didn't go to your Rerun offsite. I'd also Rerun, call your next offsite just recite. You got to do something with the re. Thanks for bringing this one different, still in the tech space, but different vibes and accomplishing a different challenge.